All right. Hi, everybody. I, well, I'm back from the music a little bit. Thank you. Um, okay, so we're going to begin. I'd like to invite, the screen is already ready for me. I'd like to invite Isaac Bakash to come onto the screen and just share with us a little bit about the Bakash Media Foundation so we can understand a little bit about the people that have helped us bring this session together and the previous episodes that we've been having in this series. And then when he is through, I will begin by introducing our panelists and we'll be ready to kickstart. So Isaac, if you're ready, you can take it away.
All right, Malik, thank you so much. Do you get me clearly? Mali, do you get me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Well,
yes,
morning to
loud
all.
And clear.
Good morning to all. My name is Isaac Wakashava, team leader of Bakash Media Foundation. We do career guidance and mentorship of youth, mostly in the higher institutions of learning. I welcome you all to the third session of our career essential series that we introduced during this pandemic. I'll take you through our idea in less than 3 minutes so that we start off our conversation. I don't know someone on the screen to start rolling. So Bakash Media Foundation is a non-profit organization. It's an educational platform that tackles unemployment with career guidance. We have done this for 2 years now, and we do it in different ways. We have different approaches of how we tackle this idea. The problem we are solving is unemployment and among youth, which is so rampant. After understanding that we are over 78% of youth in this country, and the available job markets, the available jobs can't really compete with the overwhelming number of youth in the country, as you see the statistics on your screen. So we approach this with career guidance. Career guidance, this is through training, research, and soft skilling that we do in our sessions. We carry this session through holding dialogues, conversations like this one, to universities, and before when we were locked down. But now, since we are locked down, we reach our audience through these virtual sessions. Going ahead, I think we introduced projects under Bakash Media Foundation, all in the name of tackling unemployment. So we have the first one is called Career Essentials, which we are on right now. We've been running this since 2019, and this was one of our first sessions, which happened at Makerere University. I think we can go forward. We also have career breakfasts and dinners. This is the second approach to career guidance, where we scale this to different sectors. Here at our career dinner we held was specializing only in journalism students or youth that are interested in taking on journalism as their career. So another approach to career guidance, we've done this through putting out this information in a career magazine. This is ongoing and it's going to be out, I think, at the end of this month. It's going to be online and also, in hard copy. You can access it and get this career information. So another one we have is called career clinics. It's also another approach to career guidance that we developed. Here we host, these are online sessions that are going to be running. It's also underway, where we're going to host change makers from different segments to tell their story, how they made it in their career journey, tell us the dynamics of the industry, the approaches. Yeah, and we are going to also run it. We will keep you posted about it. And then I think the last one, it's the career boot camps. We have organized these in a bit of edutainment, where we're going to have the discussions and at the same time having the fun. We understand that we youth, we don't like these things of meetings, conferences. I know, at some time they get boring. So we are going to have these boot camps where we're going to travel different places with personalities, with trainers, mentors, to really take us through the discussions and the topics and tell us their stories so that we have this one-on-one interaction and working together. So far, these are the projects we have as Bakash Media Foundation. And we are hoping to, initiate and engage you in different ways. Going ahead on the case studies, what we've done. This was our first career. This was our third one. It was at Makerere University. We had a turn-up of over 420 students, and yeah, it was a success. We had overwhelming feedback. This happened at MOOBS. This was before COVID hit in March. And we had also amazing panelists. We had over there the Minister of Public Service coming through. We had someone from NTV. Then this was virtual. This was after COVID hit in August 2020. It was at Victoria University. And we had amazing panelists led by Professor Maggie Kigozi. Then we later held the career breakfast I was talking about. Yeah, this was not in institutions because we are scaling it to different audiences, to specific audiences. So the ongoing projects so far now, since COVID hit, we've been working on different projects. The Career Essentials, which are webinar series that are running virtually. This is our third episode. We had our first one. I think, Bruno, if you can, someone on the screen can show us the first one. If you see clearly, the first one we held was in July 22nd. Then we held another one last week where we were tackling the creative industry. And so far, we've had 248 attendees with overwhelming feedback, and we've been engaging them. So today, we are tackling the legal fraternity, and we are so excited to have you people here. I want to thank our panelists today. I think for Castle Nicholas Opio, I've hosted him before while I was still working with Victoria University. The same as Pheona Wall, I hosted her while still at Victoria University. And for Derek, Rushongeza has been my longtime friend and colleague. So I'm happy to have you all here. And I'm glad that you're willing to share knowledge with the young generation that is streaming live now. Well, I think we shall engage you with time. And yes, I think Mali, you can take it from now. You can take it on. And we have this discussion started on. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Isaac, for sharing that with us. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. For those of you that have just joined, you are most welcome. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Mali Keishamaza, and I will be moderating this discussion today. I'd like to jump right into it. So I will give a very brief introduction of each of our panelists, and then I'll hand over to them so they can introduce themselves, and then we shall begin. So our panelists for today, we are in the legal fraternity today. And so our panelists, we have Ms. Pheona Wall, who is currently the president of the Uganda Law Society. And she has also worked as a lecturer before teaching law as well at KIU. So she's really been in the legal fraternity for quite a while. We also have Mr. Nicholas Opio, who is a human rights activist, and he's currently the lead attorney at Chapter 4. And then we also have Rushongeza, who is a recent law graduate, and he's also a poet and an activist as well. And these people are going to share their knowledge with us and share some wisdom with us today, and we're going to learn so much, I think. So I'm excited to get into it. So I'd like to invite our panelists to just give us a brief introduction, and then we can get right into it. So I think we'll just maintain the same order. So we'll have Ms. Pheona Wall, and then we'll go to Mr. Nicholas Opio, and then we shall go to Rushongeza, and then I will be ready to begin. I hope the panelists have their videos on so we can see who we are talking to, and then we shall be ready to start. So over to you, Ms. Pheona Wall. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, everybody that's online. Sorry, Mali.
Yes.
My name is Pheona Wall, as introduced, President Uganda Law Society. I'm a student of life. I'm a mother of 3, a wife and mother of 3. And yeah, I've also done PR in my past. So I think I've had a strange career journey, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here as well.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mali. Thank you, Isaac, for putting this together. It would have been lovely to be in the same room together, but for COVID, but thank you very much. My name is Nicholas Opio. I am just a lawyer. I do many things that I don't want to focus on because it can be a whole day talking about it. So just think of me as just a lawyer. I think he's muted. I'm not hearing him.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Her Excellency, the President of the Uganda Law Society, our very senior colleague, I don't know if he will permit me to call him a senior colleague, the Executive Director of Chapter 4, our conveners and our attendees. I'm esteemed to be here. Perhaps of everyone in the panel, I am the only one whose CV fits in one sentence. So I'm just a lawyer, and I guess like Her Excellency, I'm also a student of life. So I'm here mostly to learn. I thank you.
Thank you very much for introducing yourself. You are most welcome to this panel. We're excited to have you here this morning. I'd like to encourage the people that are joining us to just keep engaging with us in the chat section. If you have questions, feel free to ask your questions. If you have, just little additions, just engage with us in the chat section, make use of the chat section. All right, our dear panelists, I am ready to dig in. So let's get ourselves started. Domain, how important would you say you can help us take it?
Thank you so much, Marley. The law is very important in every aspect of life. As a student, you have rights. You have certain rights. If you're a student, you have certain responsibilities. Every day, everything that we do, starting from the taxes that we pay when we buy just ordinary things, up to when you have a case or there's a riot and you need protection, or it's a business that you're doing, or you're going to enter into a contract with somebody for some temporary work. Even out of school and into your careers, to happen. Now we have national IDs, sometimes names get messed up. You need a lawyer to correct. So I believe that it's good for you to have a basic understanding of the law. And that's why as Uganda Law Society, we've been encouraging all students in our rule of law clubs to understand and embrace the Constitution. Nicholas's company is called Chapter 4. Chapter 4 of the Constitution for me is the most important part for anybody to understand. If you know your rights and responsibilities as a citizen, I think it's a very good beginning for you to, because you see, your business, your livelihood. Right now, we're in the era of COVID. You need to understand your rights around vaccination. You need to understand what's your entitlement when you go to a hospital, in the emergency room. You know, they're supposed to focus first of all on treating you before the bill, you know, things like that. These are basic things, basic everyday things, but you can get taken advantage of if you don't know the law. So I would embrace the law if I was anybody. Not just for business, not just if you have a big business and you need a big lawyer, no. I'd embrace the law. Mali seems to be hanging, or is it just me? Maybe Nicholas.
I think I've lost as well.
Thank you very much for that.
Mali, are you getting us? Oh.
Hi.
I think Isaac, for the sake of the continuity, oh, okay, she's back. Oh, I think we've lost her. So I think for the sake of continuity, Isaac, you can perhaps take over while she sorts out her connectivity.
Maybe Nicholas can tell us how important the law is in ordinary life as we wait.
I think Nicholas can take it on. I think Mali has issues with her network. I don't know what's happening. Nicholas can take it on as we wait for Mali to fully settle in. I think she has problems with her network.
Can I take on moderation or giving you my views? Because I can do both.
You can first give us our views. Maybe Mali will get out of the swamp where she is now.
Great. So first of all, thank you very much, Isaac, Mali, and Madam President. This is the first time I've heard you being called Our Excellency. I hope it's not a requirement for us now to call you Your Excellency. I know you're a modest person, but let me associate myself with your views, but hasten to add the following things. First, the question should not be about whether I should get a lawyer or not. The question should be about legal literacy, because literacy of the law is essential for you as a citizen. First, for your own daily survival, how you navigate society. The things you do, the interactions you have in life, even the small things as marriage is governed by the law. So legal literacy is essential for everyone for daily survival. But it is also a legal obligation. It is also a legal obligation provided for in the Constitution. If you look at the national objectives and directives of state principles, I think Directive 19, it says it's a duty of every citizen of this country to acquaint themselves with the Constitution and the law and to protect it. In Article 17, that is expounded even further. So you have a duty to learn the law, to understand the law, both as a matter of necessity for daily survival, but also as a constitutional obligation as a citizen of this country. And so you should just, as a matter of basics, even before you go to a lawyer, acquaint yourself with the law. because the law is important in every aspect of your life. I think Mali is back, but her video is inverted. So I'm seeing an horizontal. Yeah. The last one then
I
is
am
this.
back.
That's okay. Good to see you. Welcome back. The last one is this, that lawyers are handmaids of justice. They help you interpret, they help you understand the nuances of the law. Because legal literacy is one thing, but understanding and interpreting and applying the law is really a specialty of lawyers. I like to say that just like the Bible in the Catholic Church, that shouldn't be read by all congregants, the priest must read it for you and interpret for you. The same applies to the law. That the law is a technical subject, its application and understanding can be enhanced by the services of somebody who is trained to do so. And so think about it this way. You have a family doctor, it might be a good idea to have a family lawyer. You have a border guy for your Rolex, it might be a good idea to have a lawyer for your legal problems. Not as a firefighter, because people think of us as ambulances. If you get in an accident, then you call us. No, lawyers can also be, you know, like an insurance system. We buy insurance not because we think our car is going to crash tomorrow, but just in case it happens. So think about lawyers not as firefighters, but really as an essential part of your daily survival. If you're in business, if you're in relationships, you need the advice of a lawyer. If you're buying land, if you're buying a vehicle, it might just help to get a lawyer. Great, so that's it from me.
Thank you for that. Sorry, my network jumped off. I don't know if everyone has spoken. I don't know if Rusho also spoke, or if you'd like to speak, or if I should shift gears a little bit. Are you there? Okay.
I think you can pivot to the next question.
Okay, all right. So you, from what I heard from what Pheona said and what Nicola said, you've sort of now spoken about something which I wanted us to tackle as well today. You talked about understanding the law and knowing the law. And so I want us to, I want to deal with a few questions on that today, because I think that when I look at Ugandans generally, when I hear stories about, you know, different things happening in the news, or even just hearing, you know, the way people deal with things, or even just based on observation, things you see every day, I would say that it's safe to come to the conclusion that many Ugandans, myself inclusive, are very, what's the word? Sort of elusive. Like, we don't have a clear understanding of the law. We don't fully know what our rights are. We don't fully know, you know, some of the things that the law entails and all of that. So you find that in our normal day-to-day lives, you know, people are constantly maybe breaking the law even out of ignorance, or you have people, you know, breaking ethical standards in different places, different careers, different businesses. Most of it can be attributed to lack of understanding of the law. So I want to know two things. The first thing is, as an individual, what are the things that I can do to better educate myself? What things can I do to learn the law and understand it better, so that I'm not in that position where my rights are abused and I'm not aware that, you know, my rights are being abused, or I don't know what to do, how to defend myself and all of that. Are there things that the legal fraternity has done or is doing that can also make this information more accessible? Like, can these things be taught in schools? Can we have, I don't know, like conferences where people come in and they're taught the law? What things can be done and put in place so that you have more educated Ugandans? Because I think that one of the things I would say defines us really as a culture is that we are not very aware of our rights as Ugandans. So how can we deal with that? Maybe we can start with Rusho and then we'll continue from there.
Thank you, Mali. The very first thing that perhaps we need to note is that law represents the consensus of the society on acceptable social behavior, but also on it is a consensus of society in defining rights and obligations in different instances, whether be it in trade, business, employment, whatever. So we must understand, therefore, that law is sacrosanct because it represents what we have agreed as a society to be acceptable as between ourselves, but it also represents obligations, mutual promises, I guess, that I promise you that I will behave this way or I will act this way, and you, in return, give me the same promise. So we need to understand that laws are not abstract things. They have our blood and sweat on them because they are enacted. They are enacted on our behalf and often in our interest. So in that regard, I think that our two panelists, my two co-panelists, Her Excellency the President and Mr. Opio, are doing the Lord's work, because legal awareness also often must come with legal aid. And I think that the Uganda Law Society has really pioneered access to legal aid. I was reading a report, I believe, by Lapsnet that came out a couple of years ago that said only about 18 or 20% of Ugandans use formal dispute resolution mechanisms. And that's a very worrying number, because that means that 80 or so % of the disputes that we have in this country are either resolved by some informal dispute resolution mechanisms that are often not very partial and not very impartial, but also that they most likely will be resolved in violence. And we can see that increasingly in our society, you have the, there's an increase in contestations. There's some increase in polarization of social relations. So if we are talking about what interventions have happened and continue to happen to ensure that we have a citizenry that's more aware of what the law says and what their rights are, I believe that the Uganda Law Society, for example, and various other actors in that field have, one, done a tremendous job with legal aid. I don't know if people are aware that all advocates are required to offer pro bono legal assistance annually at more or less no cost. But also that we have had, if you look at the top to bottom, bottom to top interventions that have been very ingenious. If you look at the rule of law clubs by the Uganda Law Society, I feel that those interventions have helped raise awareness of what the laws are and what the rights are. But also I feel that away from legal awareness and legal aid, there is also there's also a creation of a society of people that respect law. And that's where I believe that Nicholas's work has been extremely amazing in holding both private and public institutions to order and to account. Even, by the way, the Uganda Law Society, because I remember for every incident that happens, the Uganda Law Society is more or less the first to take action or to make a position and say, no, this is not acceptable. So I believe that those three pillars, which is legal awareness, legal aid, but also the role of gatekeepers, and that's why we need to create a society that protects gatekeepers. There is an old Latin maxim, cuius custodiet hippos custodes. If the guard will guard the gate, who will guard the guard? So I believe that people like Mr. Opio have done an amazing job in ensuring that the guard is guarding the gate. But also, I think that maybe finally, we've walked a long road from the 60s, from the 50s, from the 40s, but we still have a lot to go. And I believe that younger people like us who are coming into the profession need to pivot away from the Benz S-class mentality. I'm in this profession to drive a Benz and live in Kolo, live in Abu, but actually create homegrown legal solutions for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Rushongeza. Can I'd like to hear from, maybe we can go with Nicholas first and then Pheona. If you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, Rusho, for your very kind remarks about my humble work here. But let me say this, that the law is a basis for social order. The reason that I get onto the road and I know that I'm going to go to my destination and reach there without being knocked by somebody is because there are laws governing traffic. The reason I go to the market and buy a packed product is because I know that there are laws regulating standards. So law is the basis for social order. If there was no law and we are left to our whims, you can imagine how lawless this country can be. And law really is enforced both by the compulsion of moral persuasion as well as the threat of violence and sanction by the state. Some people are just lawful because they're religious, because they're culturally enjoined to respect some norms. But some people are really follow the law because of fear of police, because of fear of prison. So law is really the basis for social order. The second one is that it is also the basis of the legitimacy of the government. The basis of a social order is that we surrender certain rights to the state to regulate us, to ensure the safety of people and their property. That is the basis of state legitimacy. A state that cannot provide an orderly society, ensure that there's law and order, loses legitimacy. And so law is really important in our lives. But secondly, other than ask what the state can do to ensure a rule of law, the primary question has to be, what can we do to ensure that we observe the law? We talked about legal literacy, but we also must talk about the process of building a constitutional culture, a culture that respects the norms, respects the rule of law. I think we live in a society where if it were not for a threat of violence by the state, many of us wouldn't obey the law. Because take, for example, the simplest law to follow, traffic laws. I have seen people crossing the road where there are no pedestrian crossings. I've seen people driving on one-ways. Very simple laws to follow, very basic laws to follow. So we have to invest in a process of building a culture of constitutionalism, an army of people who believe that living within the confines of the law is best for every one of us. And I think several things that the Law Society has done and many of us have done is a process of building that constitutional culture. People understanding the law, people obeying the law, and people challenging unjust laws using lawful means. Things like the creation of human rights clubs in secondary schools, in universities by the Law Society, are initiatives aimed at building that culture quite early so that people know, understand the law, obey the law. The Legal Aid Project, among others, of course, is known for providing legal aid, but also legal educational literacy. The things we are doing here at Chapter 4, providing legal trainings for people in the civil society sector across the country are important. But lastly, let me say this, and I can challenge people on this call if 50% of them can sing the national anthem in all its 3 stanzas. I doubt many of us will do so. And this is simple. If you tell me all the things on the coat of arms, I know this because during my time at school, I went to school a long time ago. I'm much older than Rusho, and I think Isaac. We were taught civic education. We recited the national anthem. We recited the school anthem. You know, we young women and children of Uganda marching along. We recited these things repetitively and left in us a sense of civic responsibility, a sense of duty as citizens. So civic education is going to be an important avenue for infusing that culture in the young people, because ultimately it's the young people who are the future of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Pheona, would you like to add?
Difficult. Nicholas and Rusho, they've really said it all, but just starting from what Nicholas has said, civic education.
Your volume is a little low. I'm not sure if it's just me.
Okay, is this better?
A little bit.
Hello?
Yeah. Hi. Something has happened. It's a lot more quiet. It's a lot lower than it was in the beginning, but it's okay. We can hear you a bit. We can make out what you're saying. You can go ahead.
So I was saying that starting with what Nicholas, it's very, very important for us to know where we've come from, why we are here, what was the process of nation building, because as Rusho said, law exists for social order, and Nicholas also really brought it out. And one of the challenges that we are having right now is that we think law is something that exists maybe in a courtroom, or we think about the law on the wrong side of it. And yet, every day, when you load airtime, there are terms and conditions that you're signing up to. When you get to the data window, when you get onto Twitter and you sign up and you put up an account on Facebook, there are rights to your privacy that you're giving up, but you're not aware. So I would say that we do need legal literacy. People need to understand what rights they're giving away, what laws they're signing themselves under. Rusho said that they should be acceptable, but sometimes we subject ourselves to regulations and laws without even knowing them, without even if we were aware of them. For instance, we would not, someone is saying my volume is low. Can I maybe remove my camera and then try and be closer? Yes.
Okay.
Better? Is this better?
Yes, that's much better.
Yes. So one of the things that we need to get into is the habit of reading everything before we sign up. There's always something called terms and conditions. They even put a little box for you at the end and they say, I agree to these conditions, and you just tick it.
And we agree without reading, yeah.
Any of us can read and write. Let's read. Let's not sign up to anything before, especially the young generation. The second thing that I think Nicholas alluded to is young people. The rule of law and your embracing the law, you're living in a way that that conforms with the law, needs to start. It needs to start in your formative years. That's why we are trying to get even primary school students to understand the Constitution, because you'll be like a bent tree if you grew up, crooked. And then the other thing we need to understand also is that there is the laws that we impose, and then there's a sort of there's something they call self-control, self-moderation, and if you go biblical, there's a scripture where Jesus said that I came that I may fulfill the law, or that I may raise the standard for the law. And he raises the standard because the law says do not commit adultery, and he says if you think about it, you've already committed adultery. So there are communities who bring up their people or their children and create a culture of such moral aptitude that even the law does not get you, if you understand what I mean. So already if you look at how corporate governance, the governance of organizations and government have evolved, you find that it is no longer people that steal, but people that divert funds, because people have found clever ways of doing the wrong thing that is between the gray, that is in the gray area between the different laws, if you know what I mean.
So the standards of service, the standards of compliance have increased for organizations, for leaders. Right now, leaders have to declare their wealth, because there's a gray area where leaders are amassing wealth in a way we don't understand, that we need to increase accountability. So even as the law develops, the criminals or the crime in us, the blood of Adam, gets more and more creative. And therefore the law also evolves to create more almost moralistic standards. That's why we're going into ethics now, ethical living, ethical practice. And so that is why it's very important for everybody to understand that the law is not just something that is in a book. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves with us and our cultures and our cleverness and our creativity. And we need to also understand it as it grows. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Ms. Pheona, and for Nicholas and Rushongeza, thank you for your thoughts and submissions. You've given us a lot of new perspective and new things to think about. The other thing that I want to touch on a little bit is the perception and the general stereotype that legal work and legal business is expensive. So I know that there are so many people who get into business, for example, and choose to set aside, to sort of ignore the legal aspect of it, and, you know, getting a lawyer for the business and having someone to guide them legally, because there's this perception that, you know, the law is expensive, getting a lawyer is expensive, and it's not a necessary cost and everything. And yet we've established already that that the law is important, that we need lawyers in every aspect. And like Nicholas said, that they are more of insurance. It's not an ambulance, that you think of a lawyer only when the trouble arises. So how, when we look at things like that, that general stereotype that lawyers are expensive and legal work is expensive, and so you have many people getting into businesses, starting out in careers, just going about their daily life, completely ignoring the legal aspect of things because it's considered to be expensive. And so I'm wondering how can we deal with that? But what are your thoughts on that in terms of the expense aspect of it? Could you maybe speak to that in terms of maybe it could be expensive, but there's a reason? So maybe sort of justifying that, or just helping us shed some light, like just who is getting into business and really considering not getting a lawyer. Why should I change my mind and now consider getting a lawyer? Because in my mind, the assumption is that it's very expensive. And so if I can let go of that cost, you know, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs as much as possible. So how do we look at that? And then when you think about it from the perspective of what they call umuntu wa wansi, like the regular everyday person who is feeding hand to mouth, who has maybe started a business and all of that, and in their mind they have decided they can't afford legal work, it's not necessary. So how do we then address that issue? I feel like I've sort of made a very big generalization. I don't know if my question has been clear, but just dealing with breaking down the stereotype of the fact that law is expensive and pursuing legal action or legal counsel, legal advice is expensive. What are your thoughts on that? We can start maybe with Nicholas.
I think you're being unfair to start with me as a practicing advocate. But let me accept the challenge and say this.
Okay.
Lawyers as an unnecessary expenditure, think about them as an essential expenditure, because the cost of not being advised by a lawyer can be very high for a business. You can do wrong things and get caught up. When you go to a lawyer, the expenditure becomes a whole lot more than what you would have spent in preventative action. And so, to the extent possible, think about lawyers as an essential component of your business, and that it is cost-saving to engage them early than to come to them when, to use a bad word, shit hits the fan. Okay? The second thing is this. The second thing is this. Lawyers are like shoes or like jackets. There's a jacket for everybody in the market. Okay?
Yes.
Depending on where you shop, depending on what sort of services you need. There is a pair of shoe for every person, and plastic shoe that is produced for people who can't afford fine Italian leather shoe. There is a downtown jacket for that person who can't afford a designer jacket, like my friend Rusho here. So there is always a size that fits you. If you want to hire the most experienced lawyer, it's going to come with a bit of more cost, because like a restaurant, if you go to a Kafunda, you don't pay the same amount of money you go when you pay at Sheraton, because you're paying for the ambience. Same thing with lawyers. So there are lawyers, and I can tell you this, there are cheap lawyers in this town and who are good as well. Look for them. The third thing is this, that there are also services that are pro bono, that are free to help business people. Okay? You don't pay for it because somebody paid for it. If you look, for example, what people at Barefoot Law are doing with SMEs, helping SMEs navigate the legal difficulties in doing business, there are free services there. So learn about these services, learn about these spaces, and seek help in those spaces. Platform for Labor Action is helping lawyers, I'm sorry, it's helping businesses and employers to deal with labor dispute for free on your part, because somebody else has paid for it. So there are many services out there. We just have to make it available, people to know about it. And once you do that, but there are also big law firms who, out of corporate social responsibility over and above the law that Rusho mentioned, the requirement to provide legal hours, I think about 40 hours. There are also big law firms that have legal aid or have pro bono desks. It makes them look good if they're helping poor women in Katanga, okay? Take advantage of those law firms and their social responsibility to take, legal counsel from them at no cost. These services exist.
Yep,
Oh,
wow, thank you. That's been very useful information. Okay, Rushongeza, I think we can hear from you. Do you have something to add?
Thank you, Mali. I would just like to begin by saying that the history of the legal profession has always been noble. For Mr. Opio and Her Excellency, the President, who are practicing advocates, they know that the advocates' robes have some sort of a pocket behind where traditionally you never agreed legal fees. You went and represented someone, and if that person was satisfied, they deposited something in the back pocket of the robe, But increasingly, and this is true also of Uganda, that we've had, law has become, like a few other professions, has become an avenue for upward mobility, right? It has become an avenue for people who come from not so much to propel themselves to the zenith of the social order. And in that change or that evolution, law has to some degree lost touch with its more humane, humble roots. But just to talk about cost, necessity, and solutions. One, lawyers, the role of lawyers is value. There's nothing else. There's nothing we offer. We offer value, right? And value will always come at a cost. The better value you receive, the more expensive it might come. So, but yes, as Nicholas pointed out, there's it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum, and there is you can tap into a lot of lawyers who are not at the top tier of the rate bill, but can still offer very, very good services. But if we're talking necessity, and Ms. Opio really ran us through what law is. Law is really the foundation of social order, and that we all play by rules. So whether you are an individual or you are a company, you need to know what the rules are. You need to know what the rules of the game are before you play the game. If you want to jet crash into things before you know what rules are, what you can and cannot do, you will very likely meet trouble. And often the cost of rectifying that trouble will be maybe 3-5 times what you would have spent on a good lawyer. So lawyers are absolute necessity. Lawyers are absolute necessity because they cushion, really they are insurance, but they're perhaps more than insurance, because lawyers do not just save you from trouble. Lawyers also give you innovative solutions to doing business, So it's not true that all we do is protect you from trouble. Actually, the greatest part of what we do is help you know how best you can run your business. Third and perhaps finally, very, very early into my legal education, I really had to determine what type of lawyer I wanted to become. I could be essentially one of two lawyers. I could be a lawyer that represents multilateral capital, right? I represent huge corporations that come here, make a killing, repatriate perhaps most of the profit, and life goes on. I would comfortably live in perhaps the most plush neighborhoods and live that type of life. But I quickly realized that the best way I could be useful to my society is to become a lawyer for small local business, that I needed to be an active force in creating a local class of entrepreneurs here. And that I understand that for them, they may not have the resources that foreign corporations have for legal services. And therefore I had to work creative solutions of how we can give them the best value at the most affordable rate. And make no mistake, it's not true that by quote unquote selling your soul or representing multilateral capital, it's the only access way up. As you have probably noticed, Nick's suit is perhaps costs perhaps what I make in a year. So it's not true that it's not true. Yes, it's not true that by simply doing this type of work you will never be successful. For me, it was just about what I wanted to do with my career and my life. And for me, I needed to give back to the society. I'm a function of very many selfless acts. And I felt that for me, one of the best ways I would have done that is to assist a local group of entrepreneurs compete against very unfair, in a very rigged market system, but also against incredibly strong corporations. So, and the voices in that group are becoming louder and louder. We're becoming more and more. So it's not all hopes lost and what have you. And I feel like I've gone on such a long monologue, but maybe just to say that law, if you can take anything away, is that lawyers do two things. Lawyers insulate you from trouble, but they reorganize you to maximize, the potential of your business. So lawyers are both the guard at the gate, but they are also the engine room of your business. So don't you ever forget that, and do not compromise on that. Have we lost Mali, or she has muted?
Mali, do we still have you?
Mali seems frozen, but I'll just add something. Thank you so much, Rusho and Nicholas. If you really want to know the cost of not involving a lawyer, I always think that legal services are like electricity. When somebody asks you what's the use of electricity, it powers our, it powers all our gadgets. It gives us light, it gives us heat to cook, it gives us so much. It runs a lot, but you don't see it. It's almost an invisible service, but it's extremely essential. And it's one of those services which you mostly notice when it is not there. So legal services are the same in that way. We have a lot of people that start businesses. They go to the bank and get a loan. They go to URSB and find a broker, and they do the company for them. And then when URA comes calling, then they realize, oh, I did not register for taxes. When somebody says, oh, I did not file my returns, I'm in trouble. The bank comes and then you're like, what is this interest rate that I signed for that I'm not aware of? We have a lot of people that start businesses and go and get bank loans, and the lawyers, first of all, the bank uses thousands of lawyers to go through all their agreements, and then they give you a standard form document that has been prepared by so many lawyers. And you as an individual decides that it's safe for you to sign. Again, I'm back to the signing of documents and signing away our livelihoods and rights, sometimes even our children's livelihood. And this concept of legal services are expensive has even had our government signing away the livelihoods of our grandchildren because they're not willing to invest in legal advice. You have a minister, maybe, these days we pick ministers from parliament or from anywhere, and he's going to sign a very huge, maybe energy contract that is going to make sure that even Mali's children's children will be paying loans, and we've not gotten the lawyers in the country. We've not gotten enough legal advice. So the cost of not involving lawyers is very, very high. Of not getting legal advice is very, very high. We get, right now, this is a career guidance session. Imagine the cost of just going through school and making choices without being guided. So that is the same thing of going into any investment without guidance, of going into any relationship, any legal relationship without guidance. There are people here that that meet each other and they're from different countries and they decide they want to get married, and they get married. And then later on, the gentleman, maybe he's from abroad and he finds out that he can't own property here because he's a foreigner. Things like that. This is because you did not get advice. If you had gotten the advice, you would have gotten married, yes, but maybe you'd have done things differently. There are people who get married because they want a visa somewhere. They're just misled. Then they discover afterwards that that's not going to be a prerequisite, We have people that adopt babies and then find out later that that half the things that they did were illegal because they did not seek the right legal advice. So this I would say that legal services are like electricity. It really costs you when it's not there. So it's better for you to know it. In old England, lawyers were the most trusted people. You would find somebody has a lawyer who knows all his mistresses, who knows all his dirty secrets. He knows where all the properties, everything. He knows the value of all the paintings in his house. And he was comfortable that if I die, this solicitor is actually going to make sure my children are looked after. The solicitor would even decide which children need to have money in a trust because maybe they're spendthrifts. So I'll give them a little month, to help them. This is how important lawyers are. And in developed countries, lawyers are as essential as having a personal doctor or having a personal trainer. These days people have personal trainers, or having a personal, you need a lawyer. and you do not, and it is not expensive, as they've told you. There's very many lawyers for all kinds of people. There's the legal aid services, there's all sorts of people that will support you, but it's cheaper sometimes to just build a relationship with one lawyer and have them on retainer. If you are a family, lawyers also give family services. But what I would like to say is we need to inculcate the culture of using professionals in our businesses and in our lives. I'll end with a very small example. I got married, and then we had our first child. When we're having our second child, I did a blood test and discovered that my blood is O negative. And then the doctor said there's a problem here, because apparently if you're an O negative woman, you cannot just have children with anyone with a rhesus positive. You'll have constant miscarriages. You need a special kind of treatment to do that. You know, many times people marry each other and they don't know they have sickle cells or they're carriers, and it causes such problems in their lives because they did not get the medical advice that they needed before they got into this situation. So I do hope that we get into the habit of using professionals when we are doing anything that is legal or, you know, in accounting or medical. So that's what I'd say to this.
Thank you very much for that. Wow, so much insight has been shared. Basically, you need a lawyer. It's a non-negotiable something. If you want to save yourself a lot of trouble and more costs at the end of the road, it's better to start with one as early as possible. All right. So there are quite a number of things, you know, going on, and still a number of questions that we could ask, but I realized that two of our panelists have mentioned they have to go soon. So I think we'll now shift gear into questions from the public. I have a few questions noted down, so we'll get into that. But just before we do, there's a quick poll that's going to pop up on your screen that the Bakash Media team has prepared. Usually happens in the beginning, but today we're doing it at this point, so we'll just have the poll get up really quickly. I will guide you through it. If you need some help, what is your level of education? All you have to do is let us know, primary, high school, tertiary, or other, and then you click next. If you're using a laptop, you'll just see an arrow taking you to the next page, and then we'd like to know which career sector you're in. This, of course, will help us in the future episodes. Like today, now we're doing legal, then the next time we might bring someone from health sciences or from the creative industry or from agriculture. So this will just help us to know where there is need. Have you been to a career event before in your life? Generally, you might not even be sure. So then you just click not sure. If you know, then you just click the answer that's appropriate. And then how did you get to know about this session? Was it through any of these social media platforms, or did you hear about it through one of the panelists? Yeah, just as simple as that. I am through. My assumption is that everyone is through, but I'll give it a few more seconds. If you're through, maybe just raise your hand. If I have at least like 5 people raise their hand, I will know that at least something's been done. Okay, 2 people have raised their hands. Perfect. Oh, hi, Michelle. All right. 3, 4, 5. Awesome. 6, quite a number. Okay, so my assumption is that we are through. Now we can shift into a few questions from our audience. One of the first questions I saw, I don't know if he's still on the call, Businge Arafat had shared a question in the chat a little earlier in this conversation, talking about, it sort of covers the thing about the law being more common with everyone, how we need to learn the law and understand it better. And so he said, for example, in a country like Rwanda, they have their constitution translated so that, you know, the locals are able to understand it better. And so he's asking, why isn't the constitution of Uganda, for example, translated into maybe various local languages so that there's an opportunity for everyone to actually be able to read through the constitution and better understand it. So I don't know who would like to tackle that. I would like Pheona to tackle it.
I can do that. We actually have the constitution translated into 12 languages. This happened this year. We launched the 12 translations. So the 12 major languages right now are the usual ones, the Luganda, Luo, Nyapitara, all those ones. The constitution is now translated, and Uganda Law Reform Commission has free copies. So if you feel that you'd like to go there and access copies and take them to your communities, even as Law Society, we've been distributing some of these. Please feel free and go and get yourself a copy. And I'm sure also the Uganda bookshop now is carrying these constitutions.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's very useful information. Thank you for that. I hope Businge Arafat is here. I hope you've heard that. So just for anyone else who might be interested in this information, there are copies of the Constitution available in 12 different languages. So yeah, more access for us. And then Arthur Mugara asked, someone who is an employee of a private company, how can they access a free lawyer at the Uganda Law Society? So I think that, Pheona, that one is for you also. Yeah, 12 languages, it's incredible.
It's very easy. I think, first of all, we have toll-free lines available on our website and our social media. Our toll-free line is 0800 100 180 or 0800 100 181. So any of those numbers, you'll be able to get services. You can go to our clinics, any of our 23 clinics all over the country, and you'll be able to get a lawyer, a free lawyer. But we also have a pro bono day, an annual pro bono day, where we have about 2,700 lawyers that usually participate. So even if you choose and go on those days, you'll be able to get somebody that will represent you free of charge. But for legal aid, you have to sort of pass a means and merits test, a test that shows that you are indeed indigent. Otherwise, we will refer you to somebody that if we think you have the means, then you might be taking up some poor person's spot. I need to add that.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a very interesting system. Thank you for that. I hope, Arthur, your question has been answered. There's a question here Oh, Pheona, there's a request that you repeat that line, the toll-free line that you mentioned. Could you type it in the chat, please, so someone is able to see it and just note it down? The 0800 something phone number that you had mentioned. There's a question here from Albert Niwagaba. I don't think I fully understood it, but it's to Nicholas Opio. I'm going to read it. I think that's, yeah, you'll be able to understand and answer the question. He says the pre-entry scheme of Makerere, he's talking about the pre-entry scheme of Makerere University, I think. He says, how can a student who struggles All right, so is Nicholas still here? The question is directed to you. Okay, Michelle says she can hear me.
Got signed out for a minute. I lost you. So what was the question?
Okay. So the question, someone is asking something to do with the pre-entry exams, and they say that at the pre-entry exams at Makerere, you find that their students maybe who are struggling at UACE level get to university and they're not able to pass the pre-entry examinations, and saying that it's a bit of a frustration. So the question is, don't you think we need to change and raise the bar for students at UACE on university entry points rather than subject them to pre-entry? So I think his question is around pre-entry. He says that you did not do the pre-entries and you are an extremely good lawyer. So he'd like to hear your opinion on that. Someone called Albert. asked
Albert, thank
that
you for
section.
your endorsement of me as a good lawyer. Thank you very much. You're very kind. You're very kind. But let me tell you, the lawyers who are undergoing instruction now, whether at high school, intending lawyers at high school or university, or indeed at the bar court, are victims of the education system that I think, in my view, requires extreme reforms, urgent reforms. The system is just breaking down. It used to be that to go to law school, you needed to have some background in history, some background in literature, because those have bearings on the practice of the law. Now, a person who has done agriculture, Islamic education, entrepreneurship, and fine art, and scores quadruple A can find themselves in law school. And so there have been some reforms in the legal training in this country that have in themselves not addressed the bigger malaise in the education system. And people who are undergoing instructions now are victims of that system, whether it is pre-entry or indeed the high failure rates at LDC. So the discussion need not be narrowed down to just reforms of legal training, but our entire education system, so that they can deliver the people we need. Because what exactly is happening at Makerere University is that the pre-entry exam is an indictment on the national examination system at USCE, or A levels, as many people know it. It's an indictment that we don't trust your results. We're going to do our own admission, and therefore you have a pre-entry, exam. Even those who can pay for it have to be subjected to a pre-entry exam, even if you've got quadruple A. And so there's a problem that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, I don't think we're having the right investments and attitude in addressing those problems. There's also a problem at the bar course training. The bar course training has a lot of problems. We've talked about LDC administration. You've talked about the exam system at LDC. What we haven't talked about is the quality of lecturers who teach at LDC. I've been to the LDC Center in Mbarara, or the LDC Center that's opening in Lira. I've been to law schools like Gulu. We pick advocates off the street, not necessarily the best available, but the next available advocate to go and teach in those law schools. Are they really trained in methods of instruction? That can they teach, can they deliver to ensure that? And many of them really take that job as a part-time job. The vast majority are practicing law and go to LDC as moonlighting. And so we have to have a discussion about the nature of people we admit to training people at the bar course. And there's a greater reform that is required that I don't think this webinar has enough time for discussing them. I have radical ideas I have proposed about legal reforms in this country, but those ideas are not popular. If I can share just 3 of them. First, I said that we should think about adopting the American system, because what we are doing is doing the British system, that you have to go to, so it's both a pupillage and legal school instruction system. But in the US, the predominant system of legal instruction is that law is a second degree. So that by the time you go to law school, you're more mature. By the time you go to law school, you can comprehend the complexity of the law. Many young lawyers who come from university straight, like myself, I can tell you from my experience, it takes you 5 years to get grounded properly. But if you come from an undergrad degree and into law school, you tend to glide easily. I have proposed, for example, that we may want to think about a mixture of a pupillage bar course training with instruction at school over a period of 2 years. So increase the bar course from 1 year to 2 years, so that when you get out of the bar course, you're really fully instructed in ways that many of us have had to learn from we are like Juakale mechanics. What they teach you at LDC is not sufficient really in 9 months. You come to learn from the field, from the expert. So let's examine the means and length of instruction for the bar course in ways that enable the students to get ground. The pressure for 9 months is terrible. It's terrible. People collapse, people fall sick, people lose weight because of the pressure of finishing LDC in 9 months. We also must deal with the question of monopoly of LDC. I think it is incomprehensible that you have liberalized legal education and maintain a monopoly at the bar course. If we can create standards, ensure a proper regulator, we should have the question of monopoly discussed. Why should LDC be the only bar course training center? Let people also instruct, as long as they can meet the standard and we have a strong regulator in the Law Council. Right now, the Law Council really could do a whole lot better. It is not helping the regulation of the sector. So that's my long-winded response to the question.
Thank you for that. I think that the question has been answered fairly well, quite well. I think that you have received your answer. I can't remember the name of the person that asked. I think it was Albert. Was your name Albert? Albert, yes. I hope your question has been answered sufficiently enough for you. Okay, so I don't know if we have enough time left because I know that Nicholas and Pheona have to run. So what I'd suggest is I'm going to ask Bakash to roll, to just pop up the last poll that was supposed to come. There's supposed to be a second poll and we can do that. And then I will just thank Nicholas and Pheona and then they can just leave at leisure. There are a few more questions, so I'll ask Rusho to take them. Although there's one question that was addressed to all the panelists, I don't know if they can give us 5 minutes each so that I can ask Rusho and Nicholas and Pheona, and then I can excuse them to go. But let's just do this poll quickly to improve the future sessions. Your career status, we'd like to know if you're self-employed, if you're a student, business owner, or other. And then how you found this session. We'd just like to hear from you if you've been satisfied or dissatisfied or somewhere in between. Yeah, then the final question. Would you be interested in being part of a program that addresses education inequality inside and outside of the education sector? Okay. All right. So, have you guys finished with the poll? Mark, I think I missed your question because I jumped off the call a number of times. So you might have to just write your question again, please, so that I can see if we can cover it. I would like to address a question to all our panelists, if they can give me like 5 minutes. Nicholas and Pheona, will you be able to give me like 2 to the panelists and then I can excuse you to go? Is that okay? It's 12:30 already.
Yeah, that's
Would you be able to give us an extra 5 minutes? Okay, awesome. All right, so there was a question. Caroline Mugisha asked a question and she wanted to know what are some of the principles, or we can say the values, that have guided you as lawyers, specifically in your field as you practice law, that have guided you since you started law, that are currently guiding you. What is that one principle that you stick to, or your value that you absolutely do not change, do not go against, do not adjust for? You could go first, Pheona.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether it's any one thing, but first of all, I always remember that my calling, when I started the practice of law, I found it in Proverbs 31 verse 9, and it says, "Speak for those that cannot speak for themselves." And that has guided me. And in 31 again, Proverbs 31, the earlier verses, you see King Lemuel's mother telling the king that it is not for kings to drink alcohol and forget the cause of the poor. And for me, alcohol means there's so many things that are going to entice us. Alcohol means, you know, the Rolex watch, the cool cars and everything. We should not get so lost in materialism that we forget the cause of the poor in societies. Then the second thing that I always is really that comes from Martin Luther King, where he says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So for me, my principle has always been, if I see injustice anywhere, if I can do something about it, it's up to me to be that change that I want to see. Otherwise, if I jump this injustice here, I will find it affecting something in my future, or something with a loved one. Lastly, my mantra of being faithful, available, and teachable. You need to know who you are. You need to have your values. You have to stay faithful to who you are and what your values are. Your calling, once you figure out what your calling as an advocate is. Secondly, you need to be available to people. You need to be, we studied and we got all these skills so that we can be of value. Nicholas talked about the emphasis of value. So let's be available as much as we can. And then let's be teachable. Learn. I know we call ourselves learned, but there is no calling that requires you to read voraciously like the law. So we need to learn, embrace change, embrace different, and be willing to learn from each other. Today I've learned a lot, and I want to thank everybody for this opportunity. I want to thank Nicholas. It's always a pleasure to be in the same space with you. I want to thank Rusho and Mali and Isaac and everybody that has organized this. It's a wonderful way. I wish when we were growing up, we had these opportunities. So thank you for what you're doing for the young people. Thank you very much. So my principle really is to be fat.
Yes, faithful, available, teachable. I love it. All right. There's a question here, Pheona, that someone had asked much earlier and I skipped it. So I will just request this will be your last question, and then I can just, I guess, say goodbye and let you go. It's from Mark Wamala, and he says that Uganda embarks on another 5-year term that will be characterized by loosened constitutional guardrails and damaged checks and balances. Okay. What new legislation in the Uganda law is the Uganda Law Society proposing to steer Uganda back towards a democratic trajectory? Wow. Okay. That's a question from Mark Wamala for Pheona.
Thank you, Mark. I think that one of the things we're focusing on as the Law Society, first of all, is to have the legal aid bill passed so that we can increase access to justice for everybody. But we also are pushing for this is a legislation that's already in place, the Judiciary Administration Act. We need to have it properly enforced so that it provides a proper check on the executive and parliament. Right now we have the two arms disrespecting. We need to put some bite into the judiciary as a check on the powers of the other two arms of government. But also the Uganda Law Society is working with law reform to look at the amendment. And I think Nicholas would agree with me that there's some mutilations of the constitution that we're going to have to reverse. We have a new parliament right now, and I'm hoping that they will be willing to do courageous things. But there's some constitutional amendments that have to happen for us to get back to a proper constitutional dispensation.
All right. Thank you, Pheona. I hope that you are satisfied, Mark Wamala. I think that was a very good and detailed response. I hope that you are, you've been answered well. Okay, thank you so much, Pheona, for your time. I think I understand that you would like to leave soon. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for giving us your time. Have a great day. Nicholas, I'd just like you to answer the question on principles, and then I can also release you to go because I believe you have another engagement coming up soon. So Caroline Jisha had asked, what is your principle or your value that you really stick by as you practice law, basically something that you've done for years or that you've just started practicing, but your guiding principles?
first, let me just make a quick comment on Pheona's last remarks, and I agree with her what she said. But let me say this.
All right.
Beginning of this program, Rusho said that the law represents a consensus. My sense is different. My sense is that the law of the time represents the interest of the ruling elite, not a consensus. If the law was to represent a consensus, we'd have a federal system of government, because the Odoke Commission report, if you read it, recommended that the vast majority of people in this country were in favor of a federal system of government. So the law really represents the interest of the ruling elite. And there's an enduring lifelong contestation between the interest of the ruling elite and the majority serfs. And that contest will continue for as long as human beings exist. What is required for equilibrium to be attained is for the serfs, the ruled, the vast majority of those who are being governed, to constantly hold those who are governing them to account, to push back on the edges of authoritarianism, because power corrupts and corrupts completely. And unless power has a check through people pushing back on the excesses of power, whether you put Opio in government, whether you put Rusho in government, that's going to be the natural cause of things. So there has to be a healthy contestation. The Americans say that there's a continuous process of building a perfect union, that the struggle for democracy is a struggle that goes through generations and generations. There are setbacks. This country has its own difficulties, and there's no silver bullet to it, except to say we must have an engaged citizenry. We can't have youth for rent, that you bust them into Kololo to show that they support the president, or you pay them to go and support an opposition leader. We can't have the youth for rent, because what you're doing is mortgaging your future. We must have people who ask tough questions, hold government to account, to ensure that the lives of our people are bettered every single day, and that people who seek to benefit from power, to pillage government resources, to steal, are not celebrated but held to account. But back to the question of values. First, you may know that I'm not a Christian. I was raised Christian, but I'm not a Christian now. So I'm not, unlike Pheona, who is very theological and biblical, I'm not grounded. My moral philosophy is not grounded in the mystical belief in some man sitting upstairs and looking upon what I eat, who I greet, who I love. So my moral philosophy is not grounded in any faith or religious beliefs as such. Rather, I look at myself every day as a person who seeks to do my very honest best every day. I try my humanly possible to be as honest as I possibly can be. I like to say that when you meet me, I will not leave you in any doubt as to what I think about anything, because I have a thought about everything. I will express it, whether it is unpleasant, inconvenient, I will. So that's number one, because it's expensive to live like somebody else, to live a life of pretense. I just live myself. I will tell you what it is and how I feel. The second thing is this, that I think that I am a living example of an underprivileged child making it through an imperfect system. Born, bred, grew up in the war in northern Uganda, was a night commuter sleeping on the street, eating off dustbins, walking long distances, vending cigarettes and chewing gum, sometimes paraffin or sugarcane, laying bricks to pay for my fees. But yet here I am. Here I am. So I do believe in hard work. I believe that if you put in the hours and you're patient, you will make it. You know, when I left law school, it took me more than 5 years to break through. When people see me now, they think it was easy. My journey is tough, but it is underpinned by hard work, believe in oneself, being respectful, and being honest.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Nicholas. Thank you for sharing. and for sharing bits of your story and how you got here to where you are. Yeah, I think the big man upstairs also has watched your journey the whole way. I believe in the big man upstairs. So
people tell me so. People tell me so, but it took me through a lot of rough, and I don't know why he did that, but I hope he will explain to me one day if he's there.
He's not the one who put you through all of that. All right. I do believe you have to go. Is that right? You have an engagement, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I'd like to just say thank you for taking us through. Thank you for being a part of today's session. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and your knowledge with us. Really, really appreciate it. We've learned so much from you. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and you can feel free to leave as soon as you are ready to. Thank you so much. Rushongeza, are you still available? Yeah, awesome. Rushongeza, are you still here?
I can talk. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so we can begin with the question of, wow, you've not even answered anything in this Q&A. Your principles, what is your guiding principle as you do? I think you sort of talked a bit about it in terms of who you choose to work for and why you've chosen to work for them, but you can just give us a bit of, yeah, what do you have a particular principle that you live by, or particular principles that you live by as you practice law and do the work that you do in the legal fraternity?
Well, these are very difficult questions. I think that my values or my mantra or my beliefs will continue to evolve. But if we are to speak about now, I mean, I share circumstances with Nick. I don't come from very much. I come from very, very modest background. And I am, in a sense, an outlier because I don't come from privilege, and I come from places where very few make it out. So for me, the very first thing was that I needed to put in the hours. I needed to work hard. Every time I was at LDC, I told myself I needed to be able to go to bed knowing that I was the person, as the most hardworking person of all, say 2,000 students at LDC. And that was it. That was just the standard. I just need to work harder than everyone else. I know I'm not the smartest. I know perhaps I'm not the most appealing physically or otherwise. I'm not the most charming or affable, but I am willing. I know that the only thing that I can regulate, or the only thing that perhaps is in my control, is how hard I work. So if you're willing to put 3 hours in, I'm happy to take you for 6. So that's one of the things that for me, I have tried not to compromise on, just putting in the hours. But also, I like to sleep. And therefore, I try to model, I try to model my profession and my life around things that allow me to have a good night's sleep. And so I try as much as possible to be honest, to be truthful, to be diligent, and to generally be a good person. I'm not the most perfect, but I try. So one of the active sort of ingredients in my life is the aspiration to always do best, to always do good, to always be a good person. I don't meet it all the time, but I continue to aspire to be better. But maybe finally, if you read the first, I believe it's 1 Corinthians 13:13, it says, I have to put a caveat that I'm not the most religious as well, that I believe in God and so on. So 1 Corinthians 13:13, I believe, says the most important of these things is love. And therefore, I try to love, and to love very strongly. I have an undying belief in the goodness of mankind, but I also believe that people deserve love, especially when they don't deserve it. So I try to love. I try to build a society that's better for my children and their children. My dad, my old man, joined the resistance at 16. He walked from Fort Portal to Wakiso to try and create a country that he felt would be better for his children. So I feel that a lot of those sacrifices have been viewed, that we've burnt a lot of sacrifices at the altar of this thing called Uganda. And therefore, the ball is now in the court of our generation to try and build an even more fairer society. So I guess that's what I model my life and my practice around.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Caroline. I think you've been answered quite well, extensively by all our panelists. Another question I can ask you, Rusho, is from Water Daniel. His question is, since now you have just come out of LDC, you've just recently graduated law school, maybe you can share your insights so far in terms of what you think or what you've seen from others, what you're modeling from the other people maybe that you are following closely, or people you're being mentored by, or whatever. But Daniel is asking, what he's saying, there are so many people that graduate from maybe big schools, like let's say Harvard Law School and things like that. Like the market generally has a mix of all sorts of lawyers with different educational backgrounds. So what can one do to stand out as like when you've come out of law school and you've graduated, what can you do to be outstanding in the field and in the job market, regardless of your grades, like whether you performed well or not? Maybe if you didn't perform too well, what things can you do to stand out, like now that you don't have grades necessarily working for you in your favor? I don't know if you have anything you could share on that.
I think I need to tell people that I was not more or less a genius. I scored, I think, 13 in P7 and scored, I think, 34 in S4. I think the grades just began to improve a little at A-level and university. But the point is that practice cares very little about your grades. There are three things that practice will care about. One is diligence. There is the old saying that the devil is in the detail. So are you willing to be diligent? Are you willing to cross every T and scratch every L? Are you willing to forego Saturday night with the boys to review a 300-page, 400-page contract for money that might not make sense? Are you willing to come to your close friend's graduation and sneak off every now and then with a laptop to attend to your client? Because you see, the thing that our role as lawyers is essentially one: we are paid to take over people's problems. That's our job.
Yeah.
So people pay you so that you can take over their problems, and not very much. Lawyers are really like florists. Everyone goes to a florist to buy flowers. I've not seen a single person that gives florist flowers. So people come to us. People come to us to get to sell, to give us their problems, and therefore the issue that I had a sick cousin or I had a house party will not help them very much. They need people who will prioritize them, and trust me, if you're not willing to, they will find other people. So you need to be diligent. One, two, you need lawyers. The role of lawyers is to add value. You need to add value. I see people clamoring about, oh, we need to control the number of people enrolling. No, zero. The market will regulate that. Why will it regulate that? Everyone will go for a lawyer that offers them value as opposed to a lawyer that doesn't. If your career model is to regurgitate provisions of the law, I feel very sorry for you, because I don't think if Bali were to come to my office with a divorce, you would care two shits what the law says. Permit my French. You would want me to give you a solution. My job is to give you a solution, not to regurgitate provisions of the law. It's not that say now you need grounds of divorce and therefore you need desertion. Desertion means you need to go away without intention to return. Animus disarrendi. You wouldn't care about that. You'd care about me giving you a solution. So if you're a lawyer whether you scored all 50s or retakes or whatever, offer a solution. 3, and perhaps finally, consistency. If you're only going to be diligent and offer value 2 days a week, I'm not sure the career is going to work out for you. The very best lawyers have done this at the same level for 20, 25, 30 years. And that's why they continue to be successful. They've been consistent. And consistency often sometimes is just a routine. And I'm saying these things, but I'm also still trying to learn them. Just the diligent, the small little mundane things sometimes are also important, you know, just replying client emails on time, just updating clients on things. There are a lot of lawyers who pick a client's matter and handle it for 6 years without ever giving a client an update. Small little mundane things, just the way you treat the client, just the way you communicate with them. Because everyone wants to feel special and they're paying. So, you know, if you want to tap into the client and you know, just do simple things as give them some water, you know, if they're telling a distressing story, to, you know, give them some degree of comfort, and other people will, and they'll get paid top dollar for it.
Awesome. So consistency, add value, and be diligent. I think that answers your question well, Watcher, Daniel. There was someone in the chat, Dorcas, who had a question. So I'll just let you unmute and ask your question, and that will be the final question, and then we'll have to close because time is upon us. We have about 10 minutes to the end of this session. So Dorcas, if you're still there, you can unmute and ask your question in a very, 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 very short time. Brief. Otherwise, I'll have to cut you off. Dorcas, are you there? Would you like to ask your question still, or has your question answered? Okay, all right. I will go ahead and assume that her question has been answered. Okay, hi. You can go ahead.
Is it good morning? No, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Dorcas.
You get me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I had a question, but I'm still having it. I wanted to just ask, do lawyers have to help us out with some problems like we're having in the country, such as embezzlement of government funds and that stuff? You know, the dirty games that are within the politics in Uganda, do they have to take a part or, you know, play a role in helping us out, because we the people are being affected? Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you, Dorcas. Did you hear the question, Rusho? Your background is a bit noisy. I missed parts of it. But if Rusho heard it, then okay.
I think I guess the question was, you know, should lawyers be or the lawyers have a role to play in, you know, in the political dispensation in this country? Lawyers are part of society. They do not live in an Airbnb in heaven. They live in the society. They share in its aspirations, in its frustrations, in its concerns, in its anxieties. So lawyers must be present in society. We represent society. The people that hire us to help them with whatever their needs do not come from Jupiter. They come from these societies. Their businesses are affected by whatever transpires in this country. Their friends, relatives are affected, and so on and so forth. I mean, I think that it shouldn't just be the role of lawyers. It's the role of us as a society. And I feel that I fear that there's been a very strong abdication of those roles. If you look now, I guess it has always happened from the 60s. We have we like messiahs, right? We like messiahs and we like one box solutions. So a person emerges, say I'm Idi Amin, the problem is Obote, and we declare Idi Amin the Prince of Peace and give him state power, and then he turns out to be a disaster. But that's partly because we abdicated responsibility of solving the problem to him. We have messiah politics where we get one person and say, oh, this is the solution. That's not true. I said at the beginning that, there's that old saying that if the guard is going to guard the gate, who is going to guard the guard? Who is going to make sure the guard is guarding the gate? So if there's an actor, regardless of whether it's in the politics, whether it's in law or wherever else in life, if there's an actor whose responsibility is to pretend over the solving of a problem, we need to keep that actor to account. And for me, that for a very long time has sometimes been lacking, that we simply get, we abdicate. We like to be absentee citizens. We like to have people or parties or so on and so forth solve problems. And often when people are trusted with such responsibility and such power unchecked, they struggle to live up to the standard. So that's one. Two, I think that as a country, we like one box solutions. We say, oh, we have a problem. The problem is, again, same example. The problem is Idi Amin, and therefore, what is the solution? It must be the return of Obote. It's not that clear cut, and often we need to realize that political systems, any systems are a representation of society. Government does not hire from the sky, it hires from society. So anything we see that is wrong with government, we see in our society, whether it is, not very well thought out allocations. We know private companies that are run like empires, where if the boss has not left the office, no one can go home, and so on and so forth. So all these things are present in our society, and the solution is often to fix the society. So we must agree that there's an indictment on our part as citizens, because we have enabled a lot of these things to happen. We have enabled a lot of injustice, especially for people who are poor, especially people who are advantaged. And we continue to enable it either in acquiescence or in just replicating this behavior in our private life. Like, how many stories do you know of people offering lifts to people and then, kidnapping them or raping them, whatever, and nothing ever happens? How many times do you know people who've lent money that never cared to even, say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't pay back, So there are all these things happening in our society on a very micro level, and they go all the way up, even in legal practice, So I think that, there are things to fix, but we must fix them as a society. I don't think anyone else will ever fix them for us.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hello, do you get me? Hello.
Yes, Dorcas, we can hear you.
I would like to ask him. What
Time.
have the time? I'm sorry. I think I should let go of him.
You ask. It's okay. Ask your question. You'll just have to answer it in a quick minute.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask him. Hello.
We can
Hello.
hear you.
I just wanted to ask him what he thinks of the big number of students who are aspiring to become, aspiring to become lawyers. And I think all they're after is money, not the passion. That they don't have the passion for being lawyers. You don't have people who are standing up for people who are suffering and people who are being, how can I say this? Like, these people are being mistreated, and they don't have anybody to come to their rescue, and yet we have many lawyers in the country. Like, what does he have to say about this?
So about people who are pursuing law just for the sake of money. That's the question.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I sympathize with them, is what I have to say, man. I really, I sympathize with them. Because,
don't you think you have to send? I think you have to sensitize them.
Pardon?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me mute.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Rusho.
Yes, I was saying I sympathize with them because our profession, I mean, money is a means to an end. It's never an end. But also, you know, this profession, if you're just in it for the money, you're likely to make very big mistakes. You're likely to misappropriate clients' money, get this bad, end up in prison. You're likely to build a reputation that you would otherwise would not like. So, I mean, but also the legal profession, I guess, the problem is that people see, are always on the outside looking in. There's quite a lot of work that goes into being a good lawyer. There's quite a lot of sleepless nights. I've been awake since maybe I was awake pretty much the whole night and had maybe a short 3-4 hour nap if I came to the call. And so there are those moments of patient hard work built directly. So how will that then be reconciled with the desire for money? So you will struggle. You will really, really struggle unless you are clear. You have a more broader objective goal for why you do it. But also, if you think that you need to come to the legal profession to make money, you are mistaken on where the money is. I think that you should be in business or something else where money is the lifeblood of the transaction. So I think that what the work we do pays, yes, but we do it for something bigger than money. We do it, for me, I do it to build a society that I'm comfortable to hand over to my children. And if I should earn a check for that at the end of the day, I guess, thank God. So you are likely to suffer very many problems if it's just money, because this profession takes quite a bit to break even. But also, it will be very difficult to meet to long-term, I guess, endeavors that are not going to yield immediately.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rusho. Thank you, Dorcas, for your question. Thank you to everyone that has asked questions and that has engaged with us, those of you that joined us from the very beginning. If you joined us even in the middle, along the way, thank you so much for joining us today, taking part. We really, really appreciate it. Let's get ready to close. Oh, many of you are thanking the panelists that have already left. Okay. And thank you to all the panelists and to the moderator. Bakash Media Foundation is just reminding us that this session has been recorded and to be available on our YouTube later today. So please don't forget to subscribe. And all the sessions, this is a series that we are running. Previous episodes, if you want to rewatch today's episode, you can find it on YouTube later this evening. Chiravo Michelle says, I'd like to commend Bakash Media Foundation for organizing this once again. Thank you for choosing the best moderator. Thank you. I know to run this space. And to the panelists, thank you so much for sharing a lot of knowledge with us this AM and PM. Dorcas is saying, thank you. I think you're good at this. Oh, thank you so much. Dorcas, you always have more questions. You can maybe ask the questions on the YouTube page. Hopefully the panelists will just drop in there every once in a while and see how they can answer you, or just anyone from the legal fraternity. I don't know, but we'll also see if we can organize another one of like this a little later, because the plan is to keep organizing and doing these sessions. So even next Thursday, we will have another one. So thank you so much, guys, for taking part in today's conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for engaging. It has been really good and make it worth our while. when you keep us engaged and everything. Thank you so much, Rusho, for your time, for your wisdom, for the knowledge that you've shared on this platform today, and for staying with us till the end. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would like to hand over to someone from the Bakash Media Foundation team to maybe close us off, give a few final remarks and help us close off. My name is Marley Keshamaza. I have been your host and your moderator this morning and this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching or attending, being a part of the session. We really appreciate it. Kindly follow me on my social media platforms. My user name is the same across my platforms. It's Marley Keshamaza, the way you see my name written, just with no space. On Twitter, there's no either in Marley because my name apparently is too long, but just at Marley Keshamaza. You can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Facebook. All right, I will hand over to someone from Bakash Media Foundation to just do a closing remark, and you can close us off and we'll be ready to go. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to me.
All right, thank you so much, Marley. Thank you so much for our audience. I know many have left because of time. We were supposed to close at around 12:30, because we always go about time because of the information our panelists have and the questions from our audience. Thank you so much. We were around 50 at the start, and now it's 11. But well, I think everyone who has stand up, we do this every week, every Thursday, 11 a.m. With your girl Marley, always here giving us insightful discussions here. Thank you so much for initiating this lively discussion. Thank you so much to the rest of the team who've been here, Emma, Bruno, who is hosting us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work. Let's keep it on. Get ready for the next session that is going to run Thursday. We're tackling another sector and we shall be informing you so soon. Thank you so much. Have yourself a good afternoon and a good day to you all. So could we do this
Goodbye.
challenge? Marley, we
Thank
had
you for
decided to do
joining
this
us.
challenge. So these ones who are here.
Oh, we can
So
try.
goodbye, Che.
Oh, so the people
Goodbye,
that
Charlie.
we have on the call, the 11
Yeah.
contestants, we want to try something. I hope that you guys will be willing to partner with us, participate with us, allow us to happen. We just want, if you could switch on your videos really quickly and just wave, so that the host of this show the host of the Zoom call can just get like a screenshot of that. Like if you could just switch on and just like sort of wave and say bye, so we can get a screenshot.
we are waving
so people can
and one
believe that
person.
we did this thing. Just like wave like that. I suspect their cars driving what, but let's see. Oh, okay, we have someone. Thank you, Anne. Thank you,
Wow.
Dorcas.
Hi.
The people are here. This is so cool, guys.
Hi.
Okay. We have someone, Emmanuel. So cool. Who else? Okay, so we have about 5 people so far. Is there anyone else that's able to switch on there? I'm feeling potatoes. Wow. I told you find people in all sorts of situations.
You can as well wave
You
with
can
your knife.
wave with your potato. All right. I think we'll work with the people that we have on so far. Next time I will make the announcement in the beginning so people can organize themselves a bit towards the end so we can be ready. But I think the screenshot can suffice with like the 3 people we have. Okay. Have they all gone? Okay, I see at least a few people. One screen is full. One screen, a few. All right, those of you with your videos on, you can just wave, smile if you want to, give us some attitude, whatever you would prefer. Just know that a picture is going to be taken. So whatever face you'd like to appear in the photo is the one you make.
Hi, Alan.
Yeah, wave,
Alan,
peace sign, do this, like whatever you gotta do. And the host of this meeting shall do something like that. But otherwise, yeah, I will give you the cue when the photo has been taken and then we can say bye. All right, you can now pose for the photo. Has it been taken? I wonder how we'll know. Taken. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Bakash Media Foundation, for organizing this event. Thank you so much to everyone that has attended. A special thank you to those that have also participated in this last minute challenge because it was we caught you unaware, before those peeling potatoes. Thank you for making it anyway. We appreciate